you so much for coming out. This is Motion ATL, and what we do is kind of a meetup community with motion designers and animators. And we've been meeting for, I guess, since November now. And yeah, we've kind of had a lot of new faces show up, and we decided a couple months ago that we wanted to expand and make this a kind of a speaker thing too when we can. So we're really excited because we have Adam Plouff here.
Hello.
And yeah, I've known Adam for a while now, and he is a local Atlanta, born and raised animator and designer, but recently got back from California where he worked at Google. So yeah, we just kind of figured it'd be cool to kind of do a forum style talk where we talk about motion design, talk about what it's like to be a freelancer, what it's like to work at a company, be it a studio or a larger corporation. So yeah, so to kind of kick this off, this is the question we all get all the time. So how did you get your start in motion design, and how'd that play out?
Blind luck. I was in a metal band for a while, and then towards the end of my teenage years, and then I realized that didn't have a life to it. So I picked the closest college to me, which was Chattahoochee Tech up in Marietta, and it was really cheap. And they happened to have a TV production program, and I do some Photoshop for making band T-shirts. So I thought, that'd be easy. I could just do that. So I did that, and they had Photoshop and Illustrator and After Effects and Final Cut and how to tie knots and how to set up lights and all that stuff. And so I learned a lot about how to do like a free camera shoot, and that didn't come in handy at all from the rest of my grown-up life. But I did learn After Effects, and I learned that it was kind of fun, and so I just kind of sold my soul to it, and I've spent the last decade doing that professionally. I got into broadcast because Atlanta's got Turner and all that crazy stuff. So yeah, up until the past a year ago, I've been doing broadcast, and I've been freelance since '08. And I have a little company called Battle Axe.
Cool. That's a great segue. We can probably jump around a little bit, but let's go right into it. So let's talk about Battle Axe and how that started out. Because you, along with being an animator and designer, you're into coding, which I think is something that is kind of maybe a little rare among people that have a design background, and obviously that's played into your work that you've had at Google. But yeah, let's talk about Battle Axe and what that is. Yeah, I'll let you do that.
Yeah. Well, Battle Axe started in '09. I incorporated to be able to buy art books and comic books, because if you do creative stuff for a living, you get to write that stuff off. It's a lot easier to do it if you have a corporation. So I just did that so that I could, and health insurance and saving for retirement and all those grown-up things that you're supposed to be doing when you are employed by somebody. But I figured I would try it, since this is what I was going to be doing for my adult life. I figured I'd take it serious. So I incorporated, and that was just kind of the name I went under for a while. And then throughout all of this stuff, if you didn't know, After Effects has kind of a way you can type code into it and make expressions, and you can make stuff happen with that, which not everybody knows about that even, but even few people actually do anything with it. But it's really, really powerful if you give it a little bit of time to kind of wrap your head around variables and syntax and things. Like, you can do some really, really cool stuff with that, and then you can build scripts. And so I guess in just normal workflow, I figured out that I could shave some time off of a few things by linking properties and say this color needs to get this color from here, and then this slider is going to control all these things. And I just kept building on those things, and then figured out how logic worked a little bit with code, and then that became a way to actually make tools that other people liked. And so I used to make a lot of tools for like broadcast packages for Cartoon Network. So they would bring in a whole mess of assets, and we would build a package that stuff with the expressions.
I learned a little bit, and
yeah.
it was pretty easy.
You don't have to.
For not knowing anything about it.
No, you don't have to. You
Yeah.
don't have to have any kind of formal education. It's pretty forgiving. I mean, the errors are kind of cryptic, but you can piece together what needs to happen, why it's yelling at you for forgetting a semicolon or something like that, and then you can. And it's just, I guess it's like the rest of After Effects. You can build on that. Like you can open up After Effects and sort of move some stuff around, and then you figure out that you need something, and then you figure out what the graph editor is, and then you start making things that actually like kind of make sense. So with code, that's kind of what happens too, is that you start like pick whipping a thing over here, and then that gets the value of that, and you go, oh no way, I could like add that value to that value, and then you already have a thing that kind of becomes really custom that you don't have to do as much keyframing for, but it feels right because you set it up like that. So yeah, that's what I did. I just started kind of poking around at code and figuring out enough about how to do that, and then I've been using After Effects long enough that I have enough gripes with how it does things or how it doesn't do things. And like any tool you use, you figure out all the things that you hate about it. And
We don't really do a good job of, well, for the most part, like, there's a lot of things they left open that, like, you could easily tie into, where it's like, you could solve that, but they leave it to other people to make plugins and stuff.
I will be diplomatic and say yes, that is true. There are a lot of things that I feel. No, okay, that's fine. There's a lot of room to be done as far as listening to the different subgroups of After Effects users. Because I mean, a lot of people use it. There's like visual effects people and 3D people and composite people and 2D animators and 3D. There's
That
a lot
one
of
program can't cater to, like,
can't.
4 industries or all
No,
those
and
things work.
just because I feel like it should work a certain way doesn't mean that they feel like it should work a certain way, and that's fine. And it works well for what I need it to. And they, like you said, they left it open. They built enough of a scripting language and an expression language so that if you have the codingness at all to you, you can sort of solve your own problems as needed. And if you solve them decently enough for other people, then you can sell them and make a little bit of money. And that's kind of fun too.
Yeah, and that's what you did with Battle Axe, I guess. When did you start selling stuff like that?
I think it was in August or September of 2015.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about scripting. I knew expressions, like how to. If you don't know, for anybody who uses After Effects, expression is a thing that you put on a property, like rotation or scale or position. You put a piece of code on that one thing, and then it runs every single frame. A script is sort of like a recipe that you say, do this, then do this, then do this, then do this. And when I push this one button, I want it to do all these things. So that's something that runs once, and I guess that's kind of the simplest way to describe it.
Yeah.
But they can work together. Like you can have a script that builds expressions based on some other stuff that you put into it, and they all work together. But it's all part of the same thing. It's just kind of hacking After Effects to make it do what you want it to do. But yeah, I guess that it's like late 2015. At the beginning of 2015 is when I just sat down. I was like, I need to learn how to write scripts because I got a lot of stuff that I want to make, but it doesn't exist. So I just hammered out, and there's just weird. There's a couple PDFs floating around on the internet, and that's really all Adobe's given anybody. So you sort of just have to piece together how they let you do stuff, and then you learn some JavaScript, and then eventually you can make a few things work. And then so I did. And then I made a thing called RubberHose,
Yeah,
and I made a thing called Butt Capper, and it makes me laugh. It makes people laugh.
I use that a lot, butt capper.
Yeah.
We can talk about that, but I guess it's more important to talk about RubberHose because it's probably a little more useful in some ways.
Well, I mean, Butt Capper is one of those things that like doesn't make any sense why it doesn't
They should
exist.
have figured that out.
If you haven't used it, well, if you don't know what it is,
Explain what it is.
because you know,
What are we talking about? Butts.
Butts. If you've used Illustrator, you know that you can select a path, and then there's like one button that you can do to change the cap style from round cap to butt cap, which makes plenty of sense because it's a thing. It affects the whole characteristic of a line. So that doesn't exist inside of After Effects, and because shape layers are really badly designed. That's a whole other topic. But have to twirl down like 7 different menus just to get to one stroke cap type. And I just thought that was the dumbest thing. So really, I learned scripting stuff simply to make that, because I just drove me nuts why that didn't exist. And then once I figured that enough out how to do that, then I was like, oh, I can make this animation thing work. And so I did, and that's called RubberHose. And a bunch of people use that. So that's cool.
Let's kind of, I can try to explain what it is, but like that's really like, that took off, it seemed like.
It did.
It took off in a way
Weird.
that was really cool to like to see, because I remember we were sharing a beta to that originally.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing that and I was like, oh my god, this is actually like, it's a game changer in like a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And then you've done a lot of work to it since and released kind of the 2.0.
Yeah.
Maybe explain what RubberHose is and why it's accomplishing something that traditionally would take a lot of extra work to do.
Totally. Well, character animation is really hard. And anybody, if you ever just want to feel bad about your life, go pick up a copy of the Animator Survival Kit and then sit down with like any kind of 2D drawn animation tool, either like Photoshop or pencil or whatever people are using for cell animation kind of stuff. Toon Boom, TV Paint, all those crazy ones. But if you can do it in Photoshop, if you like pull up the timeline, you can go frame by frame. If you just want to feel, if you feel like, yeah, man, I kind of got I got some of this motion stuff figured out. I can animate. And you want a good reality check, sit down and try to do a walk cycle, like a hand-drawn walk cycle, and you will feel really bad about yourself. So I did that for every couple of years. It was about every 9 to 10 months. I would just I'm like, this is my year. I'm gonna figure out how to do real animation. I'm gonna do it. So I would do it, and I would just be so frustrated, and I could never get over the hurdle of, because there's a bunch of animation books, but the Animator Survival Kit is like one of the main things that people kind of reference. That was my reference, so it doesn't mean it's the best, but like that's what I was using. And I could never get past like the mechanical walk cycle of this is your contact point and this is your passing point. I could never, because I could, drawing's hard, and maintaining volume when something does, it's just really difficult. So I could never get past the mechanical drawing part of it to get to where I wanted to be working on. I wanted to be working on personality so that I could inject life into a character. Because I didn't want to doing profile 2D walks for a living. I just wanted to be able to get past that so that I could experiment with like, oh, what happens if they kind of do like a little bit forward thing? What if the weight's carrying over? And how would that? Well, what if I applied that principle to like something geometric? And how could I? What can that do? What can learning that do to apply to just like geometric motion design? But I could never get past that, and so, because drawing is hard, and animate and 2D walk cycles are really hard. So
everyone's gonna be different.
So,
Absolutely. Like you're gonna have one that's like a normal person walking.
Yeah.
And then you want something a little more cartoony or more like fits a certain type. And it's like, well, that kind of throws out everything I did before. I can't. There's no way you like copy and paste even remotely anything that you use beforehand on the new one.
Yeah.
So
and because of that, I mean, and then usually at that point you start digging into, if you want to do that, you dig into like Duik or Puppet tools.
Yeah.
There's a handful of rigging systems, but with them, IK, it stands for inverse kinematics, and like you have to parent this thing to here, and then this creates a forward vector that like when you do this thing, and it's just it becomes it's mathematically correct, but it's really I felt like it was too rigid for what I wanted to do, because my whole thing was I wanted to get motion and energy into it. I didn't want a perfectly mathematically correct bend thing. I wanted just to kind of feel like it was like, it's bending and it's motion and it's doing this thing. I wanted to figure, that was the part. I didn't care about whether it was perfectly correct. I wanted to play around with how that would work. So IK always rubbed me the wrong way. Little things like it would snap into place, and like if you had to turn it if you were trying to do like a foreshortening thing, like where it was going across, and like the bend would have to switch. You would have to straighten it all the way out, and then flick a switch, and then it would bend. So there was a lot of little things.
Always really
You would because and this is a little mathy aside. It is what physics work. Like, it doesn't always look good. And just because something is correct doesn't mean it looks right. So I didn't like that, and I was trading. I guess I felt like I was trading one set of complexity of like drawing stuff for another set of complexity, which was just setting up a rig and managing all of the bones and joints and stuff. And I'm too dumb to deal with all that stuff. I felt like I was, because when you're animating, it's really tough. So when you're trying to like get into the feel of something, I couldn't get I couldn't get good enough at drawing or rigging to just be able to have fun with it. So I wanted something that I was just like, why can't there be something simple that's just like a bendy line that just works? That would be great. And so I just was scratching my own itch, trying to find something so that I could maybe one day figure out how to do character animation. And because of a client job that was going to have a lot of characters, I knew I needed. I took it on when I probably shouldn't have. It was way over my head with all the characters that I kind of proposed doing. I did it on purpose. So then I sat down one day and I was like, I'm gonna build something. It's gonna be real ghetto, but I'm gonna make it work. It's barely gonna work, but it will work, and I think it'll be okay. So in a day, I sat down and kind of wrote out. It wasn't a script or anything. It was just a little preset, like a couple lines of code on a couple different properties inside of a shape layer, but it worked, and it worked for the project. And then I put the end product, like a little GIF on Dribble, and people were like, "This is really cool. Can I see more, or can I buy it?" And I was like, "Buy it? Why would you? I could sell it. I could make money." And so I didn't know what it was going to do, but I spent a couple months, 2-3 months of nights and not sleeping. One, just figuring out how the heck to make a script with buttons that you can interact with, and then realizing that it was garbage, and then rebuilding it because I didn't know anything about UX or UI or any of that stuff. So I just did it, and then it worked out. It worked decently, and then you beta people helped me kind of nail down what it needed to be doing and why it didn't work right, and we finally got it. We finally got something that other people would actually want to use. It worked.
Yeah.
So
I use it most every project. Not for limbs, for other stuff.
yeah, no, it's good for lines too. Yeah.
It's for lines. It's good for limbs is probably the first purpose of it. But yeah.
Sometimes you just want to like maintain the volume of something that needs to bend, and there's not a lot of really good ways to do that aren't too complicated.
Yeah, you're just making a lot of path points that are going to not. There's something about this like relative shape of something just not ever looking right as it bends.
Yeah. Oh, and that's the other thing too is that paths can't move in arcs. That's another thing that drove me nuts. Is that I was like, oh, well, I could just draw a line, and then I could have when the character's arm swings like this, then I can just bend it like that. And then you quickly realize that you have to set a keyframe for the whole position. So you go from here to here, and it's going to go in a perfectly straight line. You can't go in an arc. And if you read the Animator Survival Kit or the Illusion of Life or anything, you realize, oh, arcs are more pleasing. So you're like, oh shoot, well I've got to set a keyframe for every position of all of this just to take this one simple solution. I've got to do this thing, and then when I realize that my shoulder doesn't work, that means, but there's keyframes for all of it. So then I have to go through and like move my shoulder over for all of the different frames, and then it gets all screwed up. There was no good way to do a simple thing that it should have been simple. I thought it should have been simple, but it wasn't simple. So I made a simple thing.
Nice. And it's recently released like kind of the 2.0 of that, which is
yeah. I threw everything away, and because I found out that a lot of the stuff was like running really slow, and my math was really poorly done. I had a lot of redundancies and stuff that I didn't know at the time. And then there's a few things that I wanted to get into version 1 with like stop
batteries from here, put them in yours, and we'll just pass it.
Pass that. Yeah.
Unless, Katie, do you have 2 extra AA batteries? Yeah, I was wondering, I was like, I can't hear myself.
Yeah.
Or are my mics down there? Thank you so much.
I have a green light now. I think that's better.
How's that?
All right.
That's like night and day, it sounds like.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. So feedback doesn't happen.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, everybody.
Oh, something's happening.
Oh, we're getting some love.
I have no idea what that might be, but
It's a learning process.
yeah,
Animation is a learning process.
yeah. Well,
You never know what you're doing. That's a good thing to know.
That's a good
You
time.
never know what you're doing, ever. Just go with it.
I'm not hearing any ringing now.
I'm good.
I think we're good.
All right.
Cool. Awesome. So, nice transition there. I have no idea what we were talking about, but yeah, I guess I wanted to hear more about your opinion about why tools like that are needed. I know you kind of touched on that because, long story short, Adobe's not really doing that work as fast as we would like. But how is that, I guess, like, this, you're making tools that help people, and that's even fostering a community around people that, like, hey, we need these things to happen, and, like, we share work around, like, we've used this tool to make a thing. Talk a little bit about that, like, you know, because I remember you were saying you like to make tools for people, and there's a business in that. You know, as much as there is, as much as there is to animate GIFs for clients or videos for clients, there's an industry for making scripts and making plugins.
Yeah, I think that there is a delicately
Oh yeah.
there is people need things to help them do other things, and a lot of times the current model of doing things is not the best model for doing things. You have a choice, I guess, with anything really. Life, politics, anything. You can accept the way things are, or you can do something about them. And if you don't know how to do something about them, you can put forward energy to learn how to do something about those things that you feel passionately about. And if you, I guess regardless of whatever you do, whether if you're a musician or an illustrator or an animator, you do something long enough, you're going to bump into the walls of kind of what the constraints are for certain things. And if you're a painter and you don't like how the brushes are working, and you can accept it and go, man, these brushes suck. Or you can figure out a way to make better brushes that work for the way that you want to do it. And then if it works for you, then maybe other people want it to work for them. I guess that could, I mean, that's like analog brushes or digital brushes. I mean, Kyle Webster made a business out of making Photoshop brushes, and that's really cool because he didn't like how the brushes were looking, and it didn't work for him, so he made his own brushes and he sells them on Gumroad. And so I guess his kind of what he did, if you don't know, there's a dude, Kyle Webster, he's an illustrator, and he makes really cool brushes that are really, really nice. And it's not about your brushes, I mean, you still have to be good at drawing and painting, but like they're really good, and they help you get like this kind of just tactile grit and feel to your.
It's like pressure.
And they're just like, and they're finely crafted based on his experience as an illustrator, a painter. And so, I don't know how he was doing stuff. That whole idea of like, you do something long enough, you find what's frustrating about a thing, and then you learn enough. Like, I don't know, I'm not the greatest coder person, but I know just enough to make the stuff that I want to see exist, and that solves my own problems. And so that's what I kind of decided I was going to do, is just take my decade of loathing for a program and find a way to solve it with little tiny workarounds that maybe might add up to a bigger workaround. I do think that there's a lot of people, and there's a lot of things that are being made. If you get onto the Apple App Store, the desktop App Store, you see all these apps that look really pretty, and you're like, they don't do anything that I can't already do in like.
It might change your life if you download it.
Yeah, I don't know.
It looks good.
It just looks really pretty, and I immediately, every time I have like one of those annoying update things that I have to open the desktop App Store for, I do it, and I'm like,
it's like Keynote.
Go away. Yeah, it's always for like Keynote.
Cool.
Fine, it's fine. It was working fine. But you realize, for me, I'm like, I could anything that all of these apps, I could just do all this stuff in like Excel or Google Sheets or something like that. I don't need any of this stuff. But so there's stuff being made all the time that are solving these imaginary problems that maybe solve somebody's problem, and that's really great. But there's a lot of people who have been like, if you've been doing something for 10 years, you're going to find things that really, really frustrate you, and you're going to find the workflows that you just really wish existed. And for me, that's what I managed to do. And who knows if I'll ever be able to do it again, but I stumbled onto something that really frustrated me, and I wanted to solve it in a certain way. And I could have solved it a lot of different ways. I could have solved it a lot more complicated ways, and I could have solved it a lot simpler ways. But I was really trying to find the right balance for somebody like me who, when I'm in animation mode, I just want to animate. I don't want to think about all of the technical minutia of like how this keyframe is going to be affecting this other thing, and like I don't want to have to be writing code when I'm animating. That's like a different part of my brain, and I do it okay, but I don't want to do that when I'm animating. I just want to animate. So my whole thing was like, I need to make this tool to be as dumb as I am when I'm animating, and if I can do that, and if my friends can do that, that just want to be dumb animator people that aren't thinking about the technical stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing. Like, and that's the thing. If you do motion stuff for a living, or if you do even development stuff for a living, like you're being creative and you're being technical at the same time. Like if you do motion design or just video in general, you gotta know about frame rates and like pull downs and interpolations and motion curves and all this crazy stuff. It's super technical, but you don't really want to have to think about that all the time. You kind of want to set it up and then not think about it anymore. You just want to animate. You want to work. You want to get the feeling of whatever it is that you're trying to get across. So that's why I make tools, is to solve things the way I want them to be solved. Not like I'm the authority on how things ought to be, because I really am not. I have very strong opinions about how I want things to work, and luckily enough that there's enough people feel the similar ways about it and use my tools for a fair bit of their work, and it makes their lives happy, and it makes their jobs easier, and it helps them make money, and that's really awesome, and it makes me really happy. So everybody wins. Everybody makes money.
I wanted to. So you're back in Atlanta now, and you're freelancing.
I love Atlanta.
That's great that you're back here. Yeah. So kind of a. Let's talk about cities.
Yeah.
And where work is, and freelancing as like a Pandora's box of topics there. But I guess like mind in a show of hands thing. Like how many people here are freelancers? Be that illustrators, designers, animators, what have you. How many of us are considered freelance? It's a few. Okay. Cool.
How many people work at studios? Anybody? All right. Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah. So something that I like about freelancing is that like you are able to find camaraderie in other freelancers that probably are sharing the exact same kind of woes and struggles that you are. And a huge thing that comes up all the time I know about is like, well, you need to kind of move to a big city, or you studios or just with clients directly and not being like, I guess, on site or in a city that's like, he's being in New York for this job sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, early on in my career, I got a little frustrated for a minute, and I thought, I talked to my wife, I was like, I think we need to like move to New York or something. I'm not getting the kind of work that I want to get. I feel like I'm not growing like I should. And she was super supportive, and we really thought about it, and then we kind of were just like, no, that's not the right fit for us right now. Let me try a few different things. I'm gonna just change up my work situation so that maybe I'll just have like a little bit more flexibility to take the types of work that maybe will show up somewhere. And instead of because I guess I don't know what year this was. This was several years ago, but I didn't know anybody, and I just knew that like New York was a place with all the agencies and all the people were doing stuff up there. And I grew up in Marietta, and I've been in Atlanta for the past 10 years, and I graduated at the end of '06, and I've been down here ever since. Worked at a post house right over there called Magic Lantern. Everybody worked at Magic Lantern? Yeah, all right, that makes me so happy. That's one of those Atlanta post broadcast people things. Is you'll find somebody you've at least you've done some work at Magic Lantern. I didn't know how to break through into becoming somebody that did work, but I sort of just kept working. Wherever you are, there's kind of work to be done. If you're in like some sort of maybe if you're in Oklahoma, it might be tough. But I don't know what the motion scene in Oklahoma is. But in like MK12 is in Kansas City. They've been doing stuff since like the early 2000s. So if you do good work for long enough, people will find you. Especially because the internet is a thing, and it's really easy to throw stuff out there. And there's a lot of noise on the internet. Like Vimeo, I can't even go on Vimeo anymore because there's so much great stuff on there that I kind of just shut down and cry a little bit because I'm not good at stuff. And so I have to.
And then you find out that person is 19 and still in school.
Oh my gosh! You're like, dude, you're not even in college yet. What are you doing with yourself? This is like your summer before you go off to art school. I hate myself. Yeah, no, that gets frustrating too. But I mean, there is, whether you know it or not, there's a lot of work to be done wherever you are locally. Even if it's just like, I don't need to talk about, I've done my fair share of them, but like insurance company explainer videos, like there's work to be done.
They need them.
They need them, and like there's so much work that needs to be done. And in 2017, there is like you can throw stuff on the internet, and if you do it enough, people somehow find you. And like if there's enough of a theme to it, people start to go, oh, I get what that guy or girl is doing, and I can get behind that. I want to throw money at them. So I think that my own experience, I never worked in a hub city. I spent the last year in Palo Alto, Mountain View, doing technology junk. But I mean, that's not even really like it's a hub for a certain type of work, but it's not like the New Yorks and LAs and the place in London and like places that you normally think of for where high quality animation work is done. It's not one of those places, but it is kind of a hub for something. I don't know, Atlanta's not really a hub for, maybe it's a hub for really good food, but
right?
Oh man, I miss the food so much. Man.
Welcome back.
I'm so happy.
Here.
It never left. It's been here. Fried chicken. I don't think you need to do. I mean, if you, it's kind of the debate between should I go to art school or should I not go to art school? And then if you're like, no, I'm not going to go to art school. Like, should I do an online training thing or should I just figure it out until I don't suck anymore? I don't know, man. Whatever works for you. Like, if you got money and you really want to do the art school experience, then go do the art school experience. If you need some direction, if art school is not for you, and then you're like, I just need a little bit of nudging in the right direction of how to develop my own process so that I can hopefully figure out how to do something someday. Do School Motion, MoGraph Mentor. Like, there's really cool stuff going on online and really smart people. Like, you can learn from for me, I went to a really local, like a tech school for stuff that wasn't really related to what I was going to do, and then I just kind of went out there and just did it, and did it as best I could with what little knowledge I have, and then I figured just was like just keep tacking on knowledge, and it took me like 6-7 years to not suck, and now I just kind of keep trying to suck less, and that's really all you can do. That's all I can do. Like there's, I mean, like I said, there's kids that come out of school or haven't even gone to school, and they're just phenomenal, and it works for them. Like it's, if you, and same thing with like, should you be freelance versus should you be in a studio? There's really no, I think, so if you can find a way to surround yourself with people who are way better than you, whether it's in a studio, whether it's online, whether it's in a hub city, whether it's in Atlanta, Georgia, whether it's in the middle of the country, like if you can find a way to surround yourself with people who are better at whatever it is that you want to do, like code junk, illustration junk, and I mean people are really nice on the internet. Like if you just kind of throw your stuff out there and like that's the only way I met people. Like I think we met because of internet. Like we live in the same city, and like it was just like, hey man, your gifts are really cool, and your gifts are really cool. Hey, we live in the same town.
Michael is actually the common connection.
Yeah, I think so.
But people are nicer on the internet than what you might think. Or what they let on.
And if like, if you ask decent questions, like if you ask like, how do you make your color palettes? Like no one's gonna give you the time of day. But if you ask like informed questions, like how are you deriving that motion from that? How are you able to capture that weight when he puts his foot down and his belly kind of comes through? How are you doing that? People are more than happy to answer like thoughtful questions like that. If you just say like, what plugins are you using? Like you're probably gonna get crickets. But if you ask good questions that, because I mean, here's the thing, like anybody who does this stuff for a living, like they kind of like talking about it because there's a reason they do it. So if somebody comes up to him and says, dude, how did you, I'm drawing a blank on something thoughtful, but if you ask a good enough, if you gotta ask a good question that like isn't just a stock answer of like, how do you make curves be cool, then they're gonna want to talk about it because it helps them articulate whatever it is that they did for that thing, and it helps them better understand what they do and how they do it. So, no, I don't really think you need to be in a hub city. I mean, if you want to be, if you want to do it for, I mean, I know plenty of people who have done it for a couple of years and then they come back to Atlanta and they're like, cool, I grew like exponentially. I mean, I can say that in the year that I spent in Technologyville, I grew way more in like the code junk and like the user experience junk that it would have taken me many years to wrap my head around that type of stuff because I don't do that stuff. My job was making promos and animated stuff for commercials for people to fast forward through. So like my night times were spent doing the code stuff. So I would have never been able to just devote a full year to it. And that's what I got to do. I went to work at Google and that's what I got to do. I just got a crash course in user experience stuff. And code things because they needed tools built, so I built tools for the past year. And I mean, they belong to Google, and I can't do anything with them. But I gained so much experience from doing that. So yes and no. I guess I sort of contradicted myself a little bit. If you can, but I mean, if I was deliberate enough and was like, you know what, I'm going to really devote this year to figuring out user experience. Maybe I could have been able to do that on my own here in Atlanta, but I just happened to get a year from really, really smart people at Google and got to devote time to doing that. So if you get an opportunity to go to a hub city and for however long, whether it's forever or for just a little bit, and then you want to come back here because you miss the food, then totally do it. But if you don't have that opportunity and it never presents itself, don't sweat it. Just keep hustling hard and do your work here or wherever you are. And if you push for long enough, eventually you'll kind of figure out what the hell you're doing, and then hopefully a little bit after that, people will start taking notice and they'll start going, oh man, that guy knows what the hell he's doing. And we should then you can make money doing the thing that you like doing, just from we work out of our houses. And that's awesome.
Yep.
Like, that's really cool. And people want to pay us money to make the stuff that we want to make, and that's really fun. So hustle hard, take advantage of opportunities here or elsewhere, and just chase after, just follow up on all this, follow up on the types of work that you want to be doing, because nobody wants to be doing work that they don't want to be doing. If you're doing that, then you should go take a job getting a lot more money than this stuff pays. So
Yeah. That's a really nice bow that you kind of tied on the end of that, so that was nice. Definitely wanted to take time for like questions from you guys. So yeah, if you feel like we've kind of covered things we wanted to talk about. Does anybody have any questions for Adam? Yes.
What was developing user experience like? I mean, what does that entail? What kind of tools were you building?
yeah, let's see. The question is, what is the building the user experience at Google like, and the types of tools? Let's see. Trying to figure out what I can actually talk about, what I can't. Because Google's super tight-lipped about certain things, but and so a lot of the stuff is like in the public now. So this past year we worked a lot on the Assistant, which is like a big, huge initiative trying to bring about Skynet and the end of mankind. That's not really, that's a joke. We always put it as a no, but like Google has like a really, really, really smart AI thing. It's got like really good voice pattern recognition, and it like understands contextual stuff. Example would be like, hey Google, what is this song? And then it tells you, and then you're like, when are they coming to town? When you understand that like the when are they coming to town is referring to whatever that band is doing. There aren't a lot of technology companies that have that like syntaxy understanding of the words that can like parse the pronoun and go back to the previous answer that was doing. So like the AI is like really, really smart. So we came up with we were in charge. I guess back it up. I work for the Search Identity and Maps UX department. So we've got this department that's we're just responsible for like the UX user experience part of search identity, which is when you log in and like your credentials and like your private stuff and like what you are allowing Google to know about you and like your search history, just all the stuff that you're allowing Google to know about you. That part is called identity, and then Maps, which everybody uses Maps. So we're kind of a big department, and it's like split into little departments. And one of the big projects, the Assistant, that was a huge thing that we as a whole team were working on this past summer, and we're trying to solve what this thing was, because we have this technology that's really smart, and it can figure stuff out, and it's super useful. But nobody can use it because we haven't designed how it should be used. So that was a really big challenge for us as, because we have, in my department, we have like visual designers, motion designers, prototypers, and then we have like voice designers that are thinking just about how you as a user you talk to your rectangle, and then you have script writers that are like figuring out how we hire people that develop characters, like have developed characters for Pixar and stuff, to help craft the character of what is the googly voice personality supposed to be, and how are you supposed to relate to it. So this was a massive, really massive design challenge, but it wasn't just like a visual design challenge. It was like it's not stupid, but an experience design challenge, like how the voice will happen, and like how you interact with it, and like how do you go from a blank screen on your rectangle phone to calling the assistant, and then once you've called the assistant, how do you know that the assistant is doing something for you? And so as a motion design team, we kind of sat in between the visual designers that are designing stuff in Sketch, and they're flat, code that makes this thing work. And it's like they're shaving off like nanoseconds of latency to make sure that like when you talk to it, you really you know that it heard you, and that there's like enough of a visual cue that. So we as motion designers, and there's 4 or 5. What time is it? 5. We have one of the bigger motion design teams. I think we have the biggest motion design team at Google. But we were tasked with kind of wrangling the intersection of what does visual design, how does that relate to the voice design, and how does that relate to the prototype people that are building these things that actually interact with the really, really, really smart stuff of the AI and the Google stuff, and like all of this search query data and music databases and picture databases, and like being able to, when you ask for something, how does it know what that is? Between is the person asking for a restaurant menu, or are they asking for the restaurant times, or are they asking for pictures of the restaurant, or are they asking for the last time a celebrity went to the restaurant? Like figuring out how to do that and like what visual cues you give to people. It was a very heavy experience of trying to figure out how that stuff works, and like I had no experience in UX designing stuff. I'd never really had to think about that. I mean, I had opinions about like this is good and this is bad, but I never really been able to articulate like why is that good? Why is that experience good, or why is that experience bad? So being kind of thrust into that and having to think in terms of how do you serve up this like experience that it's really smart, but nobody knows it is super smart because we haven't designed it to look really smart, and we haven't designed the experience to be really smart. So that was a massive design challenge. Go back, the other part of the question was about tools. While we were working on it, we stumbled onto a few areas that we were spending a lot of our time doing that were just, there was no reason to be spending time doing it. This is generic enough, like, you know, the Google dots that like float around and look really cool, like when they did the rebrand, it was like super sexy with all the dots spinning and turning into G, and it was like really cool. Those are awesome, but you have to animate them. So if you're, one of the things that we do on a regular basis is like somebody, a visual designer comes and says, hey, I got this idea of how movie times should be coming on to, like when you ask the assistant, hey, when is this movie? When is this movie playing near me? And it pulls up movie times. And we are asked to define how that'll look. We come up with the root of like it's gonna, well, movie times are gonna come in, and this is gonna slide, and this is gonna cascade, and this is gonna come in, and then so we define all that. But I mean, we've got these little dots that everybody knows they exist, and they're floating around, and they're turning into stuff, and they're like spinning. Those have to be animated for the whole 10-second duration of this like user flow thing. So I built a system, and you have to animate it, and then you have to do that times 4 because there's 4 dots. So I built a system that just lets you do it. Like it lets you comp together the thinking state and the listening state, and then the user text-to-speech state, and then you just plop in pre-comps like you would an edit timeline, and it just works, and it takes care of all the interpolation. So those are some of the, like that's an example of something I built specifically for Google because I recognized like, holy crap, we have so many of these to put together. This is going to be a night. We're not going to have enough time to spit out a full page of the like hundreds of these things, because we seriously have to do like hundreds of these things with all the little dots that need to do whatever they need to do with different timings and different flows. And like first it's going to be the listening, and then it's going to be the thinking, and it's like all these different things that we need to put together. So I recognized that from learning what we needed to do, I recognized one of the things that was going to be a giant nightmare was just that, like something that needed to be simple, but it wasn't. So I built that, a handful of other things that we stumbled onto that, like communicating motion curve data to engineering. That was another thing that like we had stuff that existed, but it didn't exist. It was hard to get at, and the conversation to say, hey, really smart engineer, this is how this thing needs to move. And he's like, it moves. And you're like, yeah, no, but it's not moving the right way. He's like, but it's moving. And
Isn't that good enough? Though?
that's a tough conversation to have.
Yeah.
So because we're speaking different languages, we're like, well, you know, like the ease ramp is going to be like really hard and it's going to come into like a really soft ease. And they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about because they're way smarter than you or I or any of us will ever be. But you have to speak to them in numbers. So figuring out the best way to get the numbers, like it's all the same stuff. Like After Effects works on numbers, but figuring out how to get the right numbers out of After Effects to give to the really smart people, that was another type of thing that like we really needed to figure out how to like do really quickly because we had hundreds of these different things that we needed to like build really quickly so that we could get them to users to test and go, oh, that one test was really better. Like they were able to understand what was happening a lot more, and our user research showed that that was the most effective one, so that's the direction we're going to go. So we had to do this lots and lots and lots of times. So building tools that kind of made the things that you didn't think were going to be problems a lot easier, that was one of the things, that was a big thing that we really had to run into when we had a project like that. And Google's not developing Skynet, I just want to say that. Clarify that.
Yeah.
Skynet is not a thing.
We have time for maybe like one or two more questions. If anyone else had any.
I'm just going to ask a stupid question. So I work at a 9 to 5, but I'm trying to get more into motion graphics and things like that. And as far as looking, finding freelance work, what have you found as like good sources for, like where most of your jobs come from now that you're back to freelancing?
Great question. The question was coming from 9 to 5, trying to work your way into freelance. Great question.
There's like no like perfect answer.
Oh man,
everyone will tell you something different.
I had a really rough transition into freelance the first time. It was 08, 2 months before I was getting married, and I put a promo that I thought had gone to air onto YouTube, and this was like early YouTube, and it wasn't really as popular then. And it hadn't gone to air yet, and they got really upset about that, and I got let go 2 months before my wedding, and so I just was scrambling and had to like throw together a demo reel, which didn't have a demo reel since what I put together like from college, so I just stayed up all night and I just crapped out random stuff. It was garbage work, but I had something that I could run around all the different shops around town and try to do, and I don't recommend that way, but it is a way. It is a way to get into freelance. I would say now that, like we talked about, the internet is a thing and you can put stuff. Stop liking sleep for a little while, so that and stop liking your friends for a little while, so that you can devote some time to just messing around and making stuff. I can't say that it's like the best place to find work, but it is a place, and it is kind of a form. Like throw your stuff on Dribble, like just make GIFs and throw on Dribble, and then don't do it for likes or anything. Just like aim for volume, just like spit stuff out. It's because it's not really for other people. It's for you. It's just like going through the process of like pooping out ideas and like coming up with ideas on the spot. Like, really just like quick generation of ideas. Like, oh, you know, it'd be cool if I did something with a butterfly, and then and you force yourself to just like, okay, how quickly can I make this butterfly? That kind of looks like crap, but I'm just going to go with it. And then you just see what you can do with that, and then you do it again the next day, and then you do it again the next day, and then you do it again the next day, and then in doing that, you kind of figure out the stuff that you like to work on, and then once you kind of figure out, somewhere along the lines, somebody will either come knocking on your door and say, hey, can you do some stuff for me? Or a friend of a friend will say, hey, we need a thing, we need somebody, can you do that? And even if it's not exactly what you're looking for, you just go for it, you just try it and see what happens. And I say do that while you're still working, if you can, because that's where the whole not liking people and not liking sleep comes in. Because to do a smooth, you kind of either have to do like the jump ship and just go for it and just hope that it works out, or you kind of have to do the slow fade into it, and the slow fade involves not sleeping and not So make a crap load of work, throw it out there, see what happens, grow from it, make more of the stuff that you actually like making, and then once you make enough stuff that you like making that kind of looks like a thing, somebody eventually will come along and say, hey, you're the guy that makes that stuff that looks like that thing. Can I give you money to make some of that? And then at that point, people are just paying you to do the stuff that you're making for fun, and you win. You have won the game, sir. That's my advice for that.
I would just add, and you touched on this earlier, just something to be said for surrounding yourself with people who are like you and better than you. And I know for probably both of us, Twitter is like the platform for that.
Yeah, sure. Love it or hate it, it is a good platform for that.
Yeah, it's you see your contemporaries work, and you're able to understand kind of what's, honestly, it's kind of a barometer for just like that industry at large. Is that like kind of figure out what's going on right now, what's in, and what's gonna get phased out, and that helps out a ton too, because then you can reach out to your peers and say, hey, like, what's this look like? I don't know if you have sent you links to things, and it's like, how bad is this?
Yeah.
And so really bad, but
Yeah, and you befriend people on internet, and when they have a thing, like, you see these all the time, like, hey, I'm looking for a 3D generalist in next week. Is anybody available? Like, that happens a lot too.
happens a lot.
Or it may not even go to a public thing like that. Like, you just know enough people that, because one of the things with freelance stuff is that as you get busier, you can't take all the jobs, but sometimes the jobs are really cool and you want to do the job, but you have to hire somebody. So if you are a busy working professional if you're a busy working freelance professional in any type of industry, illustration, animation, video, shooting, anything like that, you're gonna hire your friends first. So just be nice to people and be helpful to people. If you figure out how to do something in After Effects or Cinema 4D or anything like that, like, throw it up on the internet and just be helpful to people. So, I mean, I can't tell you, like, I've gotten jobs from people, like, I put a little code snippet on the internet and then somebody's like, hey man, can you tell me more about that? And then I'll just kind of like blast a few tweets at them, like, this does this thing and this is controlling this, and when you do that, this gets the value from this thing. And they're like, oh, that's really cool. I've gotten work from those people that just, they recognize that I was able to articulate an idea clearly and I knew what I was doing enough so that when they had a problem, they were like, I need somebody who can articulate something clearly and knows what they're doing. Oh, Adam is that person, and so I just get a call from them. So, as I guess stock of an answer as it is, networking I hate that word. God, I hate that word. But you just be nice to people and be helpful and do a lot of work, and everybody kind of looks out for one another. And when people start getting really big, like one person will see somebody who's like doing some really good work, and then they start doing lots of really good work because that really good work caught the eye of some agency, and then that agency project caught the eye of my buddy, David Stanfield. He got called by Barack Obama, or Vox, to do some Barack Obama junk. And like that's huge, and he couldn't talk about it. He was like crazy sworn to secrecy about that stuff. But like, that stuff happens. Like you just do work, and maybe you're not in love with the work that you're doing, but you just keep doing it, and you just keep hammering away at it. And you keep being nice to people, and eventually you befriend the right people that get something and they have a need that you can fill, and sooner or later, if you're just nice enough and you do enough good work,